Okay, welcome to virtual class. I thought I would create a little video of my class demonstration. A lot of people I know have trouble following along, and this way you can make me stop at your control. And also take notes more effectively. Sometimes it's hard to take notes during a classroom demonstration. So anyway, when you call up SketchUp, if you haven't licensed it, or if you're like mine and it updated and the license didn't somehow translate, it will warn you in the splash screen that how much time you have left. I have SketchUp Pro, which needs to be licensed. If you have SketchUp Make, which some of you do, that is a free version, and it does all the same stuff as the full version, except import and export CAD file formats. And there's one or two other limitations, I believe. But anyway, you can certainly survive without the Pro version, but I wouldn't recommend it, partly because it's much harder to produce finished drawings. Anyway, I'm going to click Start using SketchUp anyway. Some of you will experience a splash screen which asks you to use a template. By all means, use the template that is the simple one at the very top. That's feet and inches. So anyway, here we are in the SketchUp screen. I'm just going to go over a couple of things that we've talked about in class, but perhaps you don't remember. The biggest one here is that to zoom in and out, you just use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out. Probably most of you have figured that out by now. If you click and drag your scroll wheel, this is called orbiting, and that spins your model around. There's also a tool up here that is called the orbit tool. And it's the same icon that you get when you click and drag the scroll wheel. If you click and drag the scroll wheel and the left button, see how my cursor becomes a hand? That is the pan tool. That allows you to move up and down and left and right without spinning the model around. And again, it correlates to the pan tool up here. Now, I'm going to draw a rectangle, and the basic tool set, the kind of getting started tool set, is what most of you have when you install the software. And the rectangle tool, guess what? It looks just like a rectangle. And I think compared to AutoCAD, this is a pretty clean looking interface, so there's not that many tools by default. We'll add more later on. But anyway, and there are some tools hidden underneath here. You see how there's a little down arrow? There's a couple of tools available, basic shapes. I'm going to click the rectangle tool. You can also use the letter R. So the shortcuts that are probably familiar to you from AutoCAD are the same here. Anyway, I can draw anywhere on the screen. I would show you here that sometimes it's nice to start at what's called the origin. The origin is where the X, Y, and Z axes meet, and those correspond to the red, green, and blue colors on your screen. Sometimes it's just handy. Also, imported objects sometimes will show up at the origin. AutoCAD, if you import an AutoCAD file, that also typically is inserted at the origin. However, AutoCAD people aren't always as rigorous at starting at the origin. Anyway, I clicked to start the rectangle. What you'll see, if I move on the face of this person here, I can actually draw a rectangle vertically in addition to on the ground. The cursor is a smart cursor, and it's trying to guess what I want to draw. So as I start this rectangle, first of all, when I get to certain proportions, you see how I get that dashed or I don't know, dotted line? My cursor then indicates golden section. That's the famous historic golden section proportion that goes back to antiquity. I can also click to create a square. Again, the cursor is a really smart cursor. I'm just going to create a big old rectangle though. So now that I have this lovely rectangle, I can use another tool here right next to the rectangle. It's called the Push-Pull tool. You just click on the tool, and a few of you I may have shown you this in class when you were adding furniture. The Push-Pull tool, you just click on a surface, and it grabs the surface. And I'm not clicking and dragging. I'm just hit the mouse button once, I can push-pull up and create a box. And if you look down here on the lower right, that value control box, I could move this up to a real specific dimension if I want. And then click to finish push-pulling. I could also type in a height, so 9 feet, which for example was the height in your studio project, or I could change my mind and type in 12 feet. And again, I'm not clicking down in that area, I'm just starting to type, and that direct entry of a dimensional value is a really handy way to enter things. And be more accurate. So anyway, the box that I have here, I have a real problem, which is that I can't see inside it. You know, this is very architectural, right? It's a giant box in space. I want to get inside. How do I do that? Well, the program has a tool, whoops, that's called the select tool, and it looks like an arrow. And this is actually similar to many programs that we use where to modify objects you have to select them first. So I'm going to click the select tool, click on this surface, and I can basically just hit delete and it goes away. And now I can see inside it. And just for your information, I'm going to hit Command Z or Control Z on a PC, undoes thing. In fact, undo is one of my favorite commands. I wish I had it in all of life. To show you something, when you single click on an object, you get just the surface. If you double click on an object, you get the surface and its bounding edges. And when I delete that, you see what happens? It actually deletes the surfaces up here. A surface always needs a boundary in SketchUp. And in fact, if I want to recreate one of these surfaces, I can just draw from endpoint to endpoint, completing the boundary, and then that completes the surface. So I'll undo back. What happens if you triple click? I'll show you. If you triple click, you get the object, the face, its bounding edges, and anything connected to those. So I get the entire object, which I could then delete. What happens if you quadruple click? I don't know. I don't think anything happens if you quadruple click. Okay, so let's go back inside this space here. And here we go. Here's a lovely interior room. And hopefully you all remembered that there are the zoom tool, which allows you to both zoom in and out, but also change the field of view. And I'm going to change it to 60 and hit enter. And that is a much more typical field of view that you would see for an interiors project. Also, when you are inside, there are a number of camera tools that allow you to kind of modify your view. For example, the lookaround tool, that's the one that shows up when you first place the camera, position a camera in a project. The lookaround tool allows you to look through your project, and I'll just use my little creepy eye to click and drag. It also happens to control the eye height. So if I wanted to make, for example, a shorter eye height, I can do that in this with this tool. And you typically want a balance of ceiling, floor, and the two walls, if you can come up with that. Also, there are other tools. For example, rather than using the zoom tool, you could use the walk tool, which is essentially moving your camera in or out. It's a little bit slower, typically, than the zoom tool, so some people like that. All of these tools, by the way, in the pull-down menus, they have the keyboard shortcuts. So, for example, this is Command period to look around. A lot of you, like in AutoCAD, will prefer just using the keyboard shortcuts. I actually often use a lot of the buttons out there. I can call up buttons for all of these tools because it's easy to point to when you're on the screen rather than hunting through the menus. So anyway, all right, we changed our field of view, we changed our eye height. Don't forget that we can also change this view to a two-point perspective if we want. Not everybody likes that look, and the minute that you click and drag your scroll wheel to make the view orbit, you will ruin the two-point perspective, and that's fine. So this is certainly a gloomy room. Maybe I'll add a window. And the way you can do that, as I mentioned earlier, you can draw on any surface. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle on this wall and push-pull it out, and maybe I'll push-pull it out 12 inches. And you see that that kind of makes something that looks suspiciously like a window. Now, I'm going to want to add a few windows and make some changes to different things. It'd be nice if I could come back to this really nice perspective view. The way that you can save this view, you create what's called a scene, and you go to the View pull-down menu and choose Add Scene, or Option Command Shift, or Option Command Plus, sorry. If you can remember that. I can never remember some of these more obscure commands. And if you remember, that's the thing which, you know, if you've modified, if you've modified your view in any way, you changed it, and then you're like, oh, I want to get back to where I was. Just click on the Scene tab name here. On a PC, interesting enough, they come up on the left side. Whatever. Now, I like that window so much, I want to make a couple of copies. When you use the select command, you can pick right on objects, just like in AutoCAD. Also, just like in AutoCAD, you can draw a selection window, and the cursor indicates that with a rectangle that's solid, versus a crossing window. Now, a crossing window, anything that touches the selection box gets selected. In a selection window, only things contained entirely within that window are selected. You do have to be careful, though, because there could be something out here in 3D space behind that will also get selected. So each of these tools is a little dangerous. Anyway, once you've got the object selected, you can click the Move command, and the Move command, or type in M. When you use the Move command, I mentioned with furniture, it's the same with any type of object. It's often not a good idea to click right on the object to move it. And the reason is that things can move in 3D, and you want to try to use other objects as a reference. See how I'm using this edge as a reference? And the cursor is actually indicating that as I mouse over it. It's saying, oh, you're on edge here. But I wanted to copy this window. Well, in SketchUp, move and copy are the same command. The only difference is getting it to become the copy command is pretty straightforward. It's a keyboard shortcut. In the PC, it's the control button that you tap. On Mac, it's the option button. And you see how my cursor gets a little plus sign next to it? If I tap it again, the plus sign goes away, and it's back to the move command. If I tap Alt, now it's the copy command, and as I move my window over, it'll make a complete copy. And one of the great things about SketchUp is that there are modifiers. If I wanted 2 copies, I can turn the copy command, which was the move command, now I can turn it into what's called the array command. These modifiers are very simple. You type in X to make a copy, and you can see it down here in the lower right in the value control box, and then the number of copies I want. So if I type in X2 and enter, X2 and enter, X2 and enter, it will make 2 copies. If I type in X3 and enter, it will make 4 copies. If I change the distance between these objects, I think I typed in 4 feet. If I type in 5 feet and enter, it will change the spacing of all those copies. And if I go back and type in X2 again, it will reduce the number of copies. You can also, if you have an object, and this is actually true for Windows very frequently, I'm going to make a copy of this window, and I'll copy it down here, but perhaps, oops, what did I do? Perhaps I just want a copy, and I don't know how many I want in between here. So I'm going to make a copy of the window, and I don't know how many I want in between the original object and the copy. So I can use the slash modifier, and if I do /2, it will squeeze 2 copies in. If I do /3, it will, that's too many, but it will try and squeeze them in. If I go back to /2, it will put them in there. Now, this is all fine and dandy, but what happens when I want to make a change to the window? Well, when I change one, only that one is modified. I'd rather have them all change. I want my windows to match. So what you can do, before you do this copy command, you can select the window and right-click on it. And right-clicking on objects is an important concept because it brings up what's called a context-sensitive menu. This menu is guessing, hey, what do you want to do with that stuff? Do you want to get information about it? Do you want to erase it? Do you want to hide it? Now, in this case, I want to make a component. And a component is like a block in AutoCAD, and that's what I think most of you are using for furniture. If you choose Make Component, and I could just call it, window or something like that. There are a number of aspects to it. I could force it to be on a vertical or horizontal surface, and I could also force it to cut an opening, which means you see how it's breaking the surface of the wall? That will force it to do that. Anyway, and obviously you want to replace what you've selected with a component. So I'll click Create. And now it's an object which I can select all in one get-go. It's much easier to select. And if I use my Move Copy command and make a copy of this guy, and times 2, and maybe that's a little far apart. Maybe I'll go with 5 feet apart. I've got a very nice bunch of windows. Now, what if I want these windows on the other side of the wall? Well, another trick is there is the normal Move Copy command. Then there's kind of the System Copy command. On a PC, it's Control-C. On a Mac, it's Option-C. If I use that when I've selected the objects and do Command V or Control V, now you see how I've got these windows connected to my cursor? Now I can just click to place those in the opposite wall, and what's nice is that they immediately snap and cut a hole through that wall, and it even is smart enough to know that I wanted to mirror those. The way SketchUp knows that is surfaces have a front and back face. So these are cutting through the front face, the gray face. There's an opposite face, which is the blue face, and that is the back. So now I want these windows to match the height and position of the other ones. If I grab these windows with the Move command, you see how I'm getting the blue axis? That blue indicator on my rubber band line means that I'm going vertically. I can lock that direction. That's called locking the inference, because SketchUp is inferring which direction I want to go in. Now, if I move my mouse over to the bottom of one of these windows, see how it's telling me it's constrained from that point. What it's doing is it's making reference to the vertical position of that point opposite the room. Now, if I just click, it will place these windows at that exact same height. And this is a great way for aligning objects with each other. And you can do this both in the vertical direction, like I did, and in the horizontal direction if you're getting the red or green indicator lines. Some views are harder to do it in also. For example, it's hard to capture the red axis unless I tilt the model ever so slightly. So now I've grabbed these windows by their corner. They're going in the red direction, so I'm going to hold down Shift to lock that inference so I don't accidentally move them up. And now if I constrain them from that same point in the opposite window, it aligns all of these windows. So now I have a really nice, wonderful looking space. And the best part is, if I use my Select command, the keyboard shortcut for that, by the way, is spacebar. If I double click on one of these components, you see how the rest of my model gets grayed away? Now if I use the Push-Pull command, what you'll see, I'll just zoom out, when I finish editing this, all of the windows will change. To finish editing, all I have to do is double click outside of the component, outside of this gray box that shows up when I'm editing. And now all of my windows are taller. So isn't that fun? Now, the other thing that you can do that I think is probably one of the most, I don't know, fun things to do, really one of the best things that we use SketchUp for, is painting stuff. SketchUp has a paint bucket, just like you know, I don't know, a drawing program. You just click on the paint bucket, and there are all sorts of materials that are available. Now, one thing that is slightly different on the Mac and PC, on the Mac you can pick colors using a color palette, kind of an RGB slider, a spectrum, a crayon box, which is a little interesting, and just picking through the base colors here. By the way, when you use colors, you can make them less than 100% opaque, which means they'll be semi-transparent, which is great for something like glass. Now, I want to make these windows glass colored. But before I go into the windows, let me just paint some materials on other things. There's all sorts of categories. I believe they are slightly different on the PC and Mac, but basic ideas. A lot of the interior fabrics are going to be here. And let's paint the floor, I don't know, some funny looking fabric. You just choose the paint and click and drag. There are, like I said, also standard colors that you can use. So if you just want a flat color, you can just paint a wall that way. It's quite easy. If you change your mind, if you want to use this paint over here, you can just hold down the, what do you call it, the Command key or the Alt key on the PC, and the cursor becomes an eyedropper. It sucks up the color, and then you can paint it right on the opposite wall. Now, do be aware that because of the peculiarities of the graphic system, sometimes a wall will look much brighter when it's painted, partly because in this case it was selected, and partly just because of the way the program handles the graphics. Now, to paint one of these windows, you would think, geez, wouldn't I be able to just come in here, pick a glass material, and paint the window. Here, I'll paint wire glass. But what happens is everything gets painted, including the window frame. We don't want that. You have to go in and go inside the component, double-click on it, and then use your paint bucket. And you see how it paints just that surface when you're inside. And then you can go and paint the window frame. Here, we'll choose a lovely green. When you paint inside SketchUp, inside a component, be aware that these are 3D, so you do have to paint all surfaces because this surface will be visible when the component is on the opposite side of the wall. Oh, I guess I was painting semi-transparent. That's a little weird. Okay, so there's my component that is painted, and you can see the preview on the opposite wall. There are other things that you can do within that component. Any elements you want to add, like window frames, are easy enough to add within this context. I'll just close out of the component. Now, you're probably wondering, what if I don't like any of the materials in the materials library? Well, it is certainly possible to go to the internet and find images for different materials. I'm just going to go to my browser here, and I searched for carpet. The big thing is it's a good idea to use seamless textures when you go to the internet. Texture is another name for material, and seamless means that the right side matches the left side of the image, and that makes for a much nicer looking material. Also, when you're in something like Google or Bing, or whatever the Mac version is, be aware that there are a number of search tools, including changing the size of the image. It's not a bad idea to try and find a large-sized image. Once you find an image that you like, oh, this is just lovely, you can right-click on it, and in that context, you can just save the image right onto your desktop. And that image will be available in SketchUp. You can just import it right in. Just go to File, pull down menu, and choose Import. And this is how we brought our AutoCAD files in. So you see how my computer is looking for AutoCAD files. What I want to do, I believe that was a JPEG image. So I'll look, and I probably saved it onto the desktop. And oh, here we go, seamless textures. And I can import that right in. Whoops. But I forgot to mention when you import, File, Import. And let's find that image. that you want to have use as a texture checked. Sometimes it will use it as an image, which is great for something like a carpet, like an oriental type of carpet where you just want one copy. But usually you want to use it as a texture, and that makes it into basically what is a paint color. And now when you go to paint, the last piece is you click to place the image. But then you also have to do one more click, which is to size the image. Now, of course, in reality, it's probably about that big, but I'm going to make it extra big so that it shows up well on the screen. And you see how it now covers the wall, and in fact, that's just a regular old paint that I could use on any surface. Okay, there we go. We'll put some carpeting on the ceiling to get the color finished up there. Now, a few last things here. One is, what if we want to add something like wall base? Let me just get rid of that. It's kind of annoying to have that paint on the wall there. And a wall base is a tricky one because what I basically want to do is draw a rectangle on that wall and push-pull it out so that it has a little depth. But there's an easier way. If I double-click on the floor, it selects the surface and its bounding edges. But now if I hold down the Shift key, you see how I get that plus minus on my cursor? I can now remove the surface from the selection set. And that means I can use my push-pull tool, copy this up, and I'm just going to copy it exactly vertically, maybe 6 inches. Now I have a surface that I can push-pull. And I can give myself some nice wall base. And when you push-pull, by the way, when I push-pull one surface, if I double-click on another surface, it will push-pull it the exact same amount. And you see how much more detail that gives the space. It gives it a lot more realism. And maybe I'm just going to paint this guy a little whiter because it feels a little gloomy in here. Now I've got my nice red wall base. What if I want a crown molding? Now, a couple of you had to do a crown molding for your style assignment. What you can do, you can draw on any surface. We've been drawing mostly shapes, but you can draw any shape using a combination of lines or freehand or arcs. Or circles. So I'm going to draw a molding up here, and maybe I'll just draw a series of a couple lines, and maybe I'll draw an arc. And let me just zoom in on this a little bit. And SketchUp will kind of guess if you want to draw an arc on a surface. See how it says on face? You want to make sure that you do draw the arc on a surface, on the surface, because otherwise it will be sticking out in 3 dimensions. Now, you see how the lines became a lighter quality. When you draw on a surface and they're not connected to anything, they're a heavy line weight. But as soon as you finish that connection, they've divided up the surface. Now this is something I can push-pull. Now, of course, push-pulling is great because it extrudes it out along the wall, but it doesn't make that kind of mitered edge. The way you do that is with another tool. This tool is called the Follow Me tool, and it's a fun tool to use. If you go to the Tools pull-down menu and choose Follow Me, strangely enough, there is no shortcut for that. I don't know why that is. Choose Follow Me, click on the surface you want to follow, and the cursor gets a kind of funny halo-like look to it. Now, as I move my cursor along, it's going to trace that profile. If I hold down the Command key and move my mouse over the top surface, on a PC it is the Control key, or no, maybe it's the Alt key. I don't know, one of those. As the command is active, now all I have to do is click, and it will draw the crown molding all the way around the surface. Now, of course, one problem with this is, what if I wanted to paint this? Well, now when I come in with my paint bucket, and here I'll pick another annoying color, you have to paint every surface. Boy, that's a pain. What you can do, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to paint the surface. Ooh, what happened to my red, my blue? There we go. If I paint it in advance, now when I use my friend, the Follow Me tool, click on the surface to get it to go, and then hold down Command or Alt on a PC and click on the ceiling to make it trace the entire ceiling. Now the paint is completely surrounding the perimeter of the room. And that is a really quick way to generate a pretty, pretty nice piece of furniture. A nice piece of furniture, nice room. Getting ahead of myself. And anyway, the last piece is one that we've done already in the past project, which is look for. So with the SketchUp preview window in the component library, if you click on the name here, the link for the name, it gives you a larger image, which is really nice if you want to kind of see what you're going to get. And then you can download it right into your model. If you just say, you know what, I like it, I want it, give it to me, just click on the picture, and what it will do is that tells SketchUp, not only do I want you to download it, I want you to put it right into my model. This is handy, and of course, as you can see, the cursor is glued to the object, so it's easy to place on the floor. Now, the last part of our lesson is when you have the move command active, there are these little rotate grips that become available. So you can move an object, but you can also click on those grips and rotate an object. And this is really handy. These rotation grips also allow you to rotate in space vertically, or really on any axis that they are visible. Again, you just click and drag on these objects. That's a little funny looking though, but I like it. It has a kind of deconstructivist look to it. The last piece, several of you experienced problems where you got a component in your project and it was really big, or sometimes they're really small. The problem there is that you need to scale the object. If you click on the object, just take advantage of this scale tool. Just click on the scale tool with the object selected, and you get these grips. And you can grab any of them. Each one does something slightly different. So if it's not entirely clear, leave your mouse over the edge and uniform scale about opposite point. Blue-green scale on opposite point and blue scale about opposite point. Each one of these will do something entirely different. So make absolutely sure that it's doing what you want it to do. In this case, if we want it to be bigger or smaller but stay in the same proportion, we would use those. Anyway, and that is the basics of how to do modeling in SketchUp. You can see that you can pretty quickly generate a fairly robust looking model. The last piece, of course, is you want to save this guy. And just go down to the Save menu and make sure that you put it somewhere that you're going to remember. And then you should be aware that not everybody has the latest version of SketchUp. So for example, on our desktop computers, we have SketchUp 2015 installed because that's when we installed it. So if you want to operate using your model on